What are some verses or teachings that you think some, or progressives in particular, are not aware of?
Well, I think now that Islam has become so readily, like the sources have become so readily available online, I think more are they aware of them, but they choose to ignore them because it doesn't fit the narrative of Islam is a religion of peace, or this was only meant for wartime, and they try and contextualize it and say this doesn't apply anymore. But I mean, the Quran itself, if you want to take like the violence as one section, the complete vitriol towards disbelievers, for example, like the verses to strike them at their necks, to amputate the opposite hands and from their feet if they spread corruption in the land, you know, that they're the worst of creatures, that kill the infidels wherever you find them. Even Muslims themselves say that verses like that abrogate the peacetime verses, because where a lot of these progressives like to quote, oh, Islam says there's no compulsion in religion. That's the hot favorite. But that was a Meccan verse when Muhammad was all calm and lovey-dovey, rainbows and unicorns in Mecca, when he didn't have the power and he didn't have the manpower and the armies behind him. That soon changed when he got to Medina and they had done the hijrah, the migration. That's where the Islamic calendar begins from. Because from that migration onwards, Islam changed its nature forever. And so you've got these things where you say, it says strike them at their fingertips or cast terror into their hearts. ISIS and terrorist organizations use those scriptures directly to get influence. There's videos of them striking, you know, hostages of theirs at their fingertips. There's videos of them beheading because the Quran says strike them at their necks. And yeah, I think the proliferation of terrorism that can be found directly in the Quran is something that progressives just love to turn a blind eye to. And then the sheer misogyny. And this is why I like to always bring it back to the grooming gangs, because we need to talk about the religious motivation behind it. The fact that there's verses in the Quran, as I mentioned, the one about beating your wife or fearing disobedience. But there's other verses that go on to say, there's many that subjugate Muslim women, but non-Muslim women specifically, when there's the, it says, tell your women, O believing men, to bring down their cloth over their like bosoms or whatever to ensure their modesty and guard their modesty. And the line goes, so that they will not be harassed or molested. So that's like a delineation that Muslim women should cover, and the non-Muslim women that aren't covered are not free from male sexual violence. And that's where the issue comes from. And that's why when you hear the rhetoric of some of these groomers in the grooming gangs and the perpetrators, they say things like, sorry to say this, it's horrible, but they say things like, this is what white girls are for, and our girls are for marriage, but this is what white girls are for. And this is religiously justified because you act like this. You are not virgins. You drink. You wear these kind of clothes. So that modesty really kind of like, even to this day, goes into their psyche as something that they act on a daily basis. And there's so much more. There's like, you know, just telling women that they're dumb, they get less inheritance, they need double the witnesses of men. There's no limit, like there's no lower limit on child marriage. So that's
in the Quran.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm of the understanding Muhammad had a 9-year-old wife, did he?
Yeah, a child bride. He married her at 6 and consummated the marriage, sexually violated her at 9. So in the Quran it says, it's talking about marriage in a verse, and it says, for those of your wives who have menstruated and those who are premenstrual, da-da-da-da. So there's no limit, there's no lower limit on, they're talking about little girls who haven't even hit like puberty yet. And yes. What do you see happening in Afghanistan under the Taliban? They marry girls as young as 5, 6.
That is mental. It's just horrific. I suppose, I mean, some people say, oh, well, those are the bad Muslims. Those are the ones who are not reading the Quran the right way or something. What would you say to those people?
I'll say they're reading the Quran in the most literal form, in the most literal sense possible. There's nice, like, you can try and find other sources of Islam to try and negate what you find in the Quran. But if you get a lot of people who call themselves Quranists, and they say we reject all the hadith because that's just a long telephone game, and we don't know who's a liar and who's not, so how can we believe that? Even though, then how do you know to pray 5 times a day. Basic things of Islam fall apart if you only rely on the Quran. But you can find 3 prayers in the Quran at max.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
But these Quranists like to say, oh, we're so much better than... We don't follow all the bad malpractice in the Hadith, but the Quran itself, as I said to you, you've got the calls to terror, you've got the misogyny, you've still got the wife beating, and you've got the child marriage that's still very problematic. I'd say they are terrorists. They're not inspired by it. They are following it down to a T.
It's a funny thing that, because I feel a little bit like that about the Bible and the Torah or whatever, like all the religious things, because you always hear modern progressives or whoever, they always seem to say, oh yeah, but they're just not the good Christians, or they're not good Jews, they don't read the thing. And it's, I sort of feel like how you just explained about the Quran. Yes, they are. You are supposed to stone an adulterer in a park or whatever, or if you go past, you're supposed to throw rocks at them. You are supposed to do all these things. And I sort of feel like either do it or don't.
Yeah, it's always a no true Scotsman with them. Always.
Yeah. You can't just sort of go, oh, I believe in this thing. Why? Oh, because the book says it. Well, then do what the book says. Because if I believed even a bit of what the book says, I'm doing all the book.
Yeah, exactly. That was little Nuriyah trying to do that. And you either chuck it all away or you go by the book.
How was that, trying to go by the book?
It's pretty depressing as a lifestyle, to be honest.